Everybody to put it on mute.
Hello,
Hey Brenda, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Hey, Miss Penny.
Hey, girl, how are you?
I'm good. Doing better.
Alexa, connect to Dell.
Did you mean Joseph and Suzanne Odell?
No,
Sorry. Who do you want to call?
cancel.
Canceling.
This means they're winning minus 2 weeks of losing. Right now it's. Got it?
Yeah.
Shirley, I see you're on, but your video is off and your audio is
Never
on
mind.
currently.
Hello,
Hi.
I got my dinner.
Who's
Thank you, Deb.
You know who she is.
Yes, I-
You got both of us now. I can't imagine who that is.
Okay, when Shirley comes on, I'll do the share screen.
That's Ann.
That
Well,
was-
Shirley has turned on her
Hi,
audio and her
Shirley.
video.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hi Shirley, and we can see
Hi.
you as well.
My picture looks a little weird. I don't know why.
Somebody's ceiling is being displayed.
Yeah, George Wiener.
Hi.
Hey,
You got
George.
You have
Hello.
two things open,
Oh,
George.
you're right. We don't know
I'm
how
gonna
to
try
get
to close mine and see if I get the sound on the
Shirley,
other
we're
one.
not able to get the sound.
I'm
on
gonna
my-
try to turn mine off and get the sound on the other one. Let's see.
How could they tell that?
That's better.
Okay, now we can,
Oh, I didn't see that.
is that better?
How does my picture look to you guys?
oh,
You look great.
Oh, okay. All right. It looks weird here. I don't know why.
It's not in the middle.
okay, should I make Shirley the co-host? So that she, I think then she can get her, or then she can share her screen if I make her the co-host.
I believe that's
I'm gonna
correct.
do that.
Okay.
I'm going to see.
So Shirley, you should be able to share your screen if you're doing any slides.
I'm not doing any slides, just talking.
Oh, okay, so then I'll go back and make, well, Chris, do you want to be co-host then? Yeah, let me do that.
Okay, but also I am gonna mute mine right now until I have to speak. I would also recommend that as many as possible mute their microphones unless you do have to say something, just to avoid a lot of feedback and issues like that.
Well, I think I can mute everybody. Let's see.
No, I can't. Sure.
We're still seeing a ceiling.
That's George.
That's George.
We're not-
No, he's up there with Ann.
Okay, so I have the ability to mute all and then unmute Shirley when we're ready to start.
I'm not a member of.
Sounds good.
I don't understand Zoom that thinks that everything is oriented towards Pacific Standard Time.
I
So
wonder
when I
about
put in-
that too.
It just drives me crazy because I say Eastern Standard Time, I put the time in, and then it goes and puts 10 o'clock, like, it's like I said, 7 Pacific Standard Time. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So I've just got to pay attention to its idiosyncrasies.
Honey.
Right.
Be a little bit
So
late.
I am going to mute myself and let's see. I'm going to turn off recording right now and then
Whatever you did.
turn it
Look
on.
what you did.
I'm sorry.
Now I've got to get back in.
Hi, Murray.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are
Hi,
you?
Terry. Hi, Shirley
Hi.
and George.
I don't,
So how are you doing as far as the move?
Oh, okay. You know, it's Paige and I both discovered that we've lived here longer than we have anywhere else.
Oh,
It's, yeah, this is so, you know, it's hard emotionally, it's hard physically to do and get the packing done and everything, but it's also hard emotionally because we
it
made a
is
lot of
hard
friends here.
emotionally. I agree, Murray.
But it's time. We're doing the right thing.
yeah.
When are you moving?
We've already closed on our unit. We're running back from the owner for a month. And we're not certain when our absolute last day. I'd say February 1st, February 5th, something like that.
Yeah,
But we're only moving 3 or 4 miles away down to
Right.
I
Ashland.
owe you 20 bucks for the club, though.
Sorry?
I said I owe you 20 bucks for the club.
Don't worry about it.
Well, we thought we could pay you tonight, but.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. We'll catch up with you.
We'll
Yep.
take care of it. So,
All right, Jack, Marla.
Gonna turn this off.
Hello. Hi, Shirley. Looking forward to it.
Hi. I'm here.
An Albert Nelson Marquis Lifetime Achievement Award recipient since 2019. But Shirley's policy, her approach has been to take something horrible and turn it into something wonderful by working with other people. And I'm going to let Shirley touch on that. And Shirley, it's all yours. Shirley, you need to unmute. And you need to unmute Shirley, please. Thank you, Ann. You're unmuted, Shirley.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here Zooming in this Lansdowne Woods community at the Torch Club to present you with a talk that I hope you will never forget. The reason I wrote my book, Please Believe Me, Finding My Voice and Surviving Childhood Sexual Abuse, was to help survivors to know that they can rise above the abuse with a great deal of help and love. But also, I wrote my book to impress upon all of the non-survivors in this world, including all of you who fit into this category this evening, to understand how difficult it is to live with the effects of the abuse every day of our lives. This evening, I am here to talk about a topic that is of enduring pain to all of us. Some of us feel the pain while the stories are in the news. while the rest of us suffer under these memories for the rest of our lives. Regular people are horrified at first, but soon put these issues into the back of their minds and go back to their daily lives without so much as a thought about how those who have been abused are still hurting and suffering from these terrible atrocities. Today, I'm here to explain what happens to those of us who have suffered so much at the hands of people who have power and authority over children in our society. These stories are everywhere for a brief period of time. And when the child abusers fade back into the background and people such as yourselves go back into your daily lives with no more thoughts about what had happened to those of us who have been part of this phenomenon. After today, after this speech, I promise you that you will never be able to think this way again, for I'm going to tell you what these horrors do to the people who have suffered from atrocities such as childhood sexual abuse. First of all, imagine you are a child. Remember what it was like to have people in your young life who loved you and cared for you and cherished you. Remember what it was like to feel the love and to have happiness in your life. Are you there yet? Are you remembering your father, or your mother, or your grandmother, or your grandfather softly whispering in your ear at bedtime, perhaps even praying with you, as you slowly feel peace around you and you drift off to sleep feeling the warm and tender presence of love and peace? How many of you have experienced that in your lives? I see this with my grandchildren and my son and daughter-in-law all the time. For me, I can almost imagine what this must have felt like, but I can't remember it. This is what I saw and I felt as a child. A father who came into my room at night in the dark, stood before me, staring at me with an evil smirk on his face. Then he climbed on top of me, held me down with his body, put his hand over my mouth so I could not yell out, and he raped me. At 8 years old, and my mother was nowhere to be found. Please, this is the time for you to take a minute and take this in. Breathe this in and think about what I'm saying and imagine if this was happening to you. I want each and every one of you in this audience to hear me and to be with me in that room. I don't ever want you to forget what I am saying to you. At 8 years old, when I was the cutest little girl with red hair and curls like Shirley Temple, and a smile and a warm personality like no other little girl in the world, I was raped by my father. I was strong, I was courageous, I was happy to the core of my being, absolutely loving life. I had friends and my school and church and summer camp and reading and thinking and coloring and being a brownie. And life was so wonderful. I woke up the next morning and looked at my father while we were in the bathroom together. And he looked back at me and said, "What are you looking at?" With that evil look in his eyes, showing off the power that he had over the little me. That little girl with promise and happiness and that spirit that loved life would never be the same. Are you putting yourself in my position? I'll give you some time, a few seconds, to let it sink in. So, will you ever feel the same way when you hear about a child being sexually abused? Please tell me that you won't. I need you to step up and find some way to make a difference in the lives of these children and adults that they have become. I need you to feel their pain, believe them, and see that they get the help that they deserve. But this is just the beginning of sexual abuse. Remember your own childhood? Doesn't sound so bad now, does it? As I said a moment ago, this is just the beginning of the torturous road that comes with this territory. The next memory that I have is so important to this story is the time I confronted my father and asked him to stop. I mentioned earlier that I love to read. Even at 8 years old, I spent many of my days after school and during the summer at the town library checking out books. Books for kids this age usually start out with the main character having a problem. The premise of these childhood books is to see the character through the pages of the book until they are able to solve the problems and issues in their lives. So, with this in mind, I decided to confront my father face to face and to ask him to stop what he was doing to me. Think about this. I was 8 years old, and I was going to step up to the most powerful figure in my life and try to reason with him. Remember your 8-year-old self? Remember your father. He was bigger than you, stronger than you, and all powerful over you. Got that picture of your father in your mind? Okay, here I was on one Saturday afternoon, and my father and I were alone in the house. He was in his office, working at his desk like fathers do. I walked into the room and asked him to please stop abusing me. He stood up and with a seething look of anger on his face, slammed his fist on the desk and said, "I don't love you. Nobody loves you and nobody will ever love you. And I will do anything I want to you." I guess you can see that my courageous stance did not help me and the abuse continued. After this, I spent my childhood trying to find someone who I could tell about what had happened to me. When I was in school, I kept hoping that I could establish a relationship with one of my teachers so I could tell him or her. But unfortunately, no. I did think it might be my third grade teacher, but unfortunately she had a fall and was out for much of the year. So I tried writing with my left hand, but the substitute teacher never thought to confront me about my horrific writing skills. I told you about my love of books. So I used the same theory I had tried with my father, that I could tell someone and they would help me fix the problems I had in my life. So naive, right? But remember, I was just 8 at this time. I really loved my third grade teacher, Mrs. Bennett. And when she came back after being out sick, I decided I would get some attention in class by bringing a fake puke to class. I made like I was sick and threw the fake puke on the floor. Of course, this caused some commotion in class, and the janitor was called to clean it up. He discovered very quickly that it was fake, and that was it. I didn't even get into enough trouble with my favorite teacher to have her call me in for a talk after class. So no chance to tell her either. Not getting anywhere quickly in my quest for help, I was again trying to find someone to tell. My next quest for help was even less successful and coincidentally heartbreaking. My parents were regular churchgoers, and both my father and my mother were involved in the church. I was a member of the junior youth group, so I had a relationship with the pastor. I happened to be alone with him one day, and I told him about what my father was doing to me. Boy, it took courage to tell him, but I really liked him, and I thought we had a good relationship. I couldn't see any reason why he would not believe me, but maybe by now you can imagine what happened. He told me that I must be mistaken and that I must have misunderstood what he was doing to me. Because of course he loved me, my parents loved me, he knew them, and what I was saying must not be true. He smiled at me and escorted me out of the room. No luck there either. You may be wondering why I never told my grandmother, who was so important to me. I never told her because she was the only person that I truly trusted and loved in our family, and I could not take the chance that she would not believe me. My brother also knew about the abuse. He's 5 years older than I am. And some nights he could hear what was happening to me. And also some nights I would take my pillow and sleep under his bed. There's so much more, but I need to move on now to the next important topic. Have you ever heard of the concept of the inner child? Probably not, but it is so important to understand how the abuse affects children as they grow up. Would you believe that a child's emotional development basically ends at the age when the abuse takes place? So, at the age of 13, I had the emotional development of an 8-year-old. And at the age of 31, I still had the emotional capabilities of an 8-year-old. As you read my book and hear my life story, you will understand better how this developmental delay was so serious in my life. And these same developmental delays happen to all other victims of childhood sexual abuse. Basically, this means that you do not figure out how to maneuver in the adult world as others do. You do not grow up emotionally, and this hurts you because you do not understand how to navigate in the adult world. Another aspect of this is that even as an adult, you are unable to take care of yourself emotionally. Your feelings are very raw, and your feelings hurt very easily. As you get older, this can certainly hurt you both in your personal life as well as your professional life. Sometimes I still feel the pain of what my father said to me when I had asked him to stop abusing me. Which brings me to the next part of my story, anxiety. Many times when people experience a lack of self-confidence, they develop anxiety. Anxiety creates a feeling of lack of control. When you feel anxious and it builds to a high level, you are really incapable of handling life. So what I'm saying is that while you have long ago forgotten about that little girl who was abused by her father, she in her teens and 20s and older is still struggling mightily. And this struggling overwhelms her until she can get the help she needs. And she still struggles forever, at least sometimes in her life. After all this information, what could be left? The most important part of the story, suicide. I don't honestly believe how after all the times I have thought about suicide in my life and how many times I truly wanted to kill myself, that I am actually still alive. It truly is a miracle. But I want to start the story of the first time when I was 13 years old, and I'm going to read from the book. The first time I truly attempted suicide with a realistic plan was when I was 12 or 13, and we were at my aunt and uncle's home in New Hampshire, and the four of us were sleeping together in the attic. I was totally creeped out because we were all sleeping in the same room. There were no walls to separate us, and it was very uncomfortable to be sleeping in the same room with my father. I told my parents that I wanted to kill myself, and they actually laughed at me. I told them that I was going to put a plastic bag over my head. They laughed even harder. They said something like, "Oh, sure, like you could really do that." So I put the plastic bag over my head, and they never even came over to stop me. When I think about this incident, I remember wishing at the time that I had had the guts to do it. Boy, that would have shown them. But they did not acknowledge my actions in any way except with their laughter. They never even came over to me to take possession of the plastic bag that I had over my head. I don't really remember what stopped me from doing it, but this time the sexual abuse had stopped. I guess in the end, it was just my will to live that kept me alive, and my love and trust in God, and my real hope that when I was able to chart my own life, that I could find happiness and contentment. Yet, had I done it, this act would have shown the world a set of parents who were immersed in horrific grief over the death of their child from a senseless act committed by an irrational child. The world would not have changed one iota by me doing this, but not doing it showed me something. It showed me that they did not care about me or what I did to myself, that I was on my own and that I could not count on them to care about me or to care for me. A very important lesson for me indeed, and one that I would never forget. I believe this was the end of my hope that my parents would ever be there for me in my life. This was when I first began to suppress the memory of the abuse. And to be honest with you, the how and why of me still being here is not the important point. The point is that I was lucky enough to find the power to stay alive and to get the help that I needed at many times when I truly did not want to live to see another day. This is another crisis that comes along in the life of a childhood sexual abuse survivor. Remember, and this is really important, that sexual abuse advisors always feel on some level that somehow the abuse is their fault, that we are responsible for our feelings so long after the abuse. Why couldn't I just grow up and forget about what happened to me as a child? Why can't I just forget that I could find no one to help me or listen to me? We always think of it this way. What is wrong with me and not what was done wrong to me? And I know that all other survivors feel this way as well. These feelings are always with me. You know that one of the hardest days of the year for me is Mother's Day. Why, you may ask? Because my mother never helped me. Even though I have two wonderful sons who couldn't love me any more than they do, Mother's Day is really tough. Also, some days the simplest thing can end up being traumatic for me. For example, if someone tells me about their memories of their childhood, including stories about how wonderful their parents were to them, I will always feel the sting of regret and sorrow for my childhood memories of my parents. So I ask you, read my book and truly understand what it is like to have been sexually abused as a child. I truly believe that you will never again hear a story about this abuse, whether it is from a child who is seeking your help, a gymnast telling her story and discovering that she was not the only one, or the young boy who trusted and obeyed his priest or minister, or the young actress or actor who was abused by a powerful person in the community, in the artistic community, or a child who reports abuse by a teacher or coach and only think about it for a day or two and then forget about the story. You will know, with so much greater understanding and knowledge, you will never look at a sexual abuse victim in the same way again. For me, my own life without the influence of my parents started when I went to college. I could not wait to go to college and to leave home. Of course, like many of us, I'm sure, I had never been to the campus of Wilson College before that day. I couldn't believe how pretty the campus was. I remember standing in line to get the information about my room and my roommate, and there she was standing next to me. We had a room on the ground floor of the dorm, and when we looked out of the window, we saw the grass and trees, and it was a lovely outlook. I remember the classes and realized that everyone was as smart or as I was, or smarter, and it was strange after being in high school. My major was going to be economics because I had taken it in high school and I absolutely loved it. I had a strong relationship with both of our economics professors, and I spoke to Mr. Townsend often. One day he said to me, Shirley, I have heard you talk about everyone in your family except your father. Remembering this story later on in life helped me in therapy to bring back the memories of my childhood. I remember we had a great time and enjoyed our classes and activities very much. It was a wonderful and transformative time for me to be away from home. Wilson was the beginning of a great life for me, and I truly have had a great life. For all of the hard times, there have been many more great days than bad ones. Ken and I met when I was a sophomore and Ken was a senior in high school. We were together from then on until we got married in October of 1969, my junior year in college. He had entered the Air Force and had received his overseas assignment in Italy, and we decided we wanted to get married in the States. After my graduation, we lived in Italy until he left the Air Force. When we returned back to the States, we lived in Long Branch, New Jersey, while he was getting his degree at Monmouth University. He went on to become an inventory control manager in several different companies in New York City. I wanted to read to you about my first good job that I got. I was having trouble finding a good employment agency, but finally I met with an agency that had a prospect for me with New Jersey Bell Telephone Company. The interview was in Newark, New Jersey, and I went there on the bus. I was having a very good day with no panic attacks. I went up there having no idea what the interview would be like. After I arrived, I met with two gentlemen who explained the process to me. First, I would be given financial and other material about a failing company, and I would have to figure out how to save the company. After that, I would have to make both a written recommendation and also an oral presentation on how to save the business. And finally, that was a long day for sure, but I really enjoyed the process and felt confident about both my written and oral presentations. I felt strong and sure of myself. It took a few days for the letter to arrive, but it was good news when it did. I got the job. After I was hired, I found out that the job I had applied for was that of a customer sales representative at New Jersey Bell Telephone. Women were finally getting a chance to move into management positions, and I was the first woman outside of the company who had been hired for this position. My first business card showed my name as S.J. Aumack, so that the customers would not know that I was a woman. The job entailed selling telephone equipment and services and making sure the equipment arrived on time and was installed to the customer's satisfaction. Before I could begin to work, I had to be trained. The training was in Newark, New Jersey, and it would entail a month of study. That was when the ferocious panic attacks set in, along with the feelings of self-doubt. The training classes were difficult to endure. It was all I could do to sit there in my seat. I tried to calm down and finally did feel a bit better after I got to know my classmates and the teachers. But as I look back, it is difficult to believe that I could actually have finished. Another time in my life when I realized I am a strong woman. After the training course was complete, I was ready to start the job. The commute was 30 minutes from our apartment. I was so panicked that my wonderful husband, Ken, and I stayed overnight in a hotel, so I would only have to drive a mile or two to the office on the first day of my job. Being with my husband, my rock, meant everything to me. I was determined to succeed after having been given such a wonderful opportunity, and he was equally determined to be there for me and with me. After we had children, I began to prepare income taxes, and I realized that I really liked working with people and became interested in a profession that was quite new at the time, financial planning. I had my own business for 35 years, and I became a certified financial planner and an enrolled agent with the Internal Revenue Service. I absolutely loved what I did, and I enjoyed helping people so much. Ken was wonderful watching the children while I studied for all of the many licenses and designations that I needed to become a true professional. I actually became a good writer because of my experience writing letters to the IRS and other government agencies. My writing to them had to be powerful, clear, and easy to understand, no matter how difficult the issues were. We loved to travel after our experiences in Italy and took the children to so many places when they were growing up. We always had so much fun together. When the children grew up and we settled into the empty nest syndrome, we enjoyed every moment of it and also enjoyed seeing our boys become educated and choose their careers. They are both very happy in their professional and personal lives, and we are very proud of their choices and successes. After 9/11, 2001, Ken's job was moved to Rhode Island from New York City, and we decided that instead of looking for other work, he should become a member of my firm, and he did. We worked together for 12 years before we retired at the end of 2013. I always wanted to write this book, and I knew that retirement was the perfect time. And I am so happy that I stuck to my goals and did it. However, after I finished the book, I began to suffer from PTSD and was hospitalized for 6 days. I added this part of the story after I finished the book because I again feel that people need to know that the effects of the abuse last forever. Anyone who would like me to speak to a group for them, I would be happy to do it free of charge. This is why I wrote the book, to help others. And also, all of the net proceeds from the sales of the book go to a child advocacy center in Freehold, New Jersey, to help abuse victims tell their stories once. And most times, the stories can even be used in court to spare children that terrible experience of being in court. If you would like to buy a book, you can contact me directly or buy it on Amazon. Thank you for attending this presentation. And now I will be happy to take any of your questions.
Shirley,
Yes.
when did the abuse stop? I have two questions. That's the first one. And did your mom know?
Okay. When did the abuse stop? My father did not want me to get pregnant, so it stopped when I was between 12 and 13. And the second question was, did my mother know? Before my mother died, my brother and I sat with her and I confronted her about that. And she pretended that she didn't know. I don't know if she knew or not, but she probably, if she did know, she just was suppressing it. She said to me when I talked to her about it, she said, gee, I never thought of your father as a sexual being. And my answer to that was, Mom, it wasn't about sex, it was about power. So.
Hi, this is Chris. If anyone has a question, you can raise your hand. If you go to the Zoom controls, there's a place to raise your hand, and either Ann or I will see that and be able to recognize you, and we can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can just put it in the chat box, type it in the chat box. So I'll give everyone a minute or so to see if there are any questions.
Shirley, this is Laura. I was just wondering what kind of affirmation or consolation your brother might have given you.
My brother is in much worse shape than I am. He's a hoarder. He lives a terrible life. He never married. He said he would never marry. He would never have children. He was wonderful when I was a child. He's 5 years older than me. And here he had this little sister who was 5 years younger. And we used to do all kinds of things together. And he always tried to include me and make me part of his life. The fact that his room was right next to mine and he knew about the abuse, he could hear it some nights. And I used to go hide under his bed. He knew all about it. It affected him in many ways, almost worse than it affected me, because he could never help me.
Shirley, this is Jack. Did your father ever reach a point where he acknowledged what he did?
Well, the best way I can answer that is to tell you a story. One day when he was about 65 years old, he was in the hospital and he was getting back in bed. And while he was doing that, he exposed himself to me and he looked at my face. I obviously was gobsmacked by that. And he just gave me that little evil smirk that he had and said, "What's wrong? You've already seen this before." So that was how he acknowledged me.
Shirley, this is Chris. Have you had much of an opportunity to work with other abused kids and share and try to provide assistance and support and help to them? I think your book has been effective in doing that, but I'm just, it's an open-ended question.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to personally talk to and act with people who have been abused, because it brings back all those memories of the past and it's not good for me. And that's why I think I suffered from post-traumatic stress after I wrote the book. It all came back to me in a very real and significant way. So I am always willing to talk to people and listen to their story, but as far as being the one to help them, I'm not the right one to help them. They need to seek professional help, just as I have done. So
Understood, and thank
Yeah.
you. And the we've been going to torch for a number of years. I think I can speaking for Penny and I, this is probably one of the most touching stories we've heard, and it's not an easy one for you to give, I'm sure, and it's very much appreciated. And if we were all at the auditorium, you'd probably receive a standing ovation. It was a very telling, very touching story. Thank you for being willing to share.
Well, I also just want to say too that I've had a wonderful life. I have a wonderful husband. We've really enjoyed our lives together tremendously. We stopped the cycle of abuse from hurting our children or affecting our children in any way. I was very diligent as a mother to make sure they would never get into a situation where they could be abused by anyone. And so while I've had a terrible childhood, and I really did have a terrible childhood, I have had a wonderful life. So don't worry too much about me. I mean, it does still affect me at times, but I have come to the point where I understand how to deal with it. Thank God.
And thank God is right. Before we leave, Dave Thomas, I believe, has his hand up. And Dave, if you can unmute, please ask your question. Thank you, Michael.
Earlier, I have a hard time talking about this, not because it's happened to me or anyone in our family, but the strength that you have is just hard to comprehend. And I think you are to be commended or amazed by that. But my question is, am I doing something wrong?
No.
Oh, okay, well, all I saw was Chris's hand on the screen.
Oh, no. Go ahead, David.
Okay, my question is do you or anyone have any idea what compels a man, your father or any father, to do what happened to you? I just can't
Yes.
comprehend it.
Yes, and I wrote about that in my book. My father never felt that he had any power in his life. He had a job. He worked for the Prudential Life Insurance Company. He had two brothers and a brother-in-law that both worked there. And in those days, they didn't fire people as much. You know, they tried to keep them on. And especially since he had three relatives working there, I think they did, even though he wasn't a particularly effective an employee. But after my father died, my mother showed me, and I'm telling you this, it's absolutely literally true. He had an entire drawer, large drawer in his chest of drawers, filled with thousands of notes about how he had been mistreated by the company that he worked for. And what he did to me was just a way for him to have some control in his life. He picked on the person that I didn't have any say in what he did, and that's what happened.
Okay, it's hard to comprehend, but I guess I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and also my father and two of his siblings went to stay with their maiden aunt during the summers. And from what I gather from the rest of my family, they were really screwed up too. My one aunt, she was what you would call obsessive compulsive. If we stayed at her house and she heard you going into the bathroom, she'd stand outside, wait for you to come out, and then she'd go in and clean up the whole bathroom. She'd wipe out the sink, and it was just incredible. She was really a mess, and I could go on and on about that. My other uncle, he was extremely angry all the time. See, my father was very quiet. My cousins were amazed. They always thought I had it good. I had the good father because he was so quiet, but he got out his frustrations in his own way. But my other uncle, he would get so angry with his children. He used to chase them around the yard. And he was hospitalized quite a few times for depression and other mental type issues. So the three of them were all messed up for some reason, but we really don't know exactly why.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I would also have to give a nod to Ken for helping you have a reasonably normal and successful adult life.
Yes, he's been a
It
wonderful
probably
husband.
takes two to do that.
Yes, and I'll tell you a good story that illustrates that. When we had our 25th wedding anniversary, one of the people was teasing us in the room, and he said, "Tell me, what's the secret to a happy marriage?" So Kenny said, "Well, everybody says that having a happy marriage is a 50-50 proposition, but that's not true. Sometimes you have to give 100% and you get nothing in return. Other times you need 100% and you have nothing to give." And that's how Kenny always lived through our life. That's how he treated me. When I needed help, he was always there for me. When he needed help, I was there for him. And that's how it worked out for us. So we're very, very fortunate.
Thanks for all those thoughts.
And with that, folks, unless Brenda has something to say or.
Well, I just want to say that I think in today's society that this is coming out more and more. Unfortunately, not when Shirley was growing up.
Right.
But I do commend you on getting through it. And it's more prevalent than we know. It really is a lot more prevalent. So
Absolutely.
thank you for bearing your soul to us. And if we were there with you, we could give you a big hug.
That's right.
Thank you. And thank you guys for coming tonight.
Yes, thank you.
And everyone, we will